Today is Canada's first Truth and Reconciliation statutory holiday, if you want to call it a holiday. But there's functions going on all over Canada, and Indigenous communities are being recognized. Indigenous people are being recognized for the atrocities that we've suffered over the generations. A lot of us are curious about the ground penetrating radar, and I met a man today named Brian Whitting, who is a professor and a GIS coordinator, and has been tasked with using this instrument to locate the unmarked graves at the various residential schools. And I want to introduce you to him and share this interview with you. I found it fascinating. It was super interesting, a great gentleman, and I want to thank you, Brian, for sharing your knowledge. I hope you all enjoy this. Beautiful Shequetman women are.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting this.
Oh my God. It's really humbling, and it's really pretty surreal to see the turnout that we have here at our arbor on this very special day, the first Truth and Reconciliation Day. I mean, what a moment. My heart is continuing to fill, and I couldn't be more proud of the gathering, not only from the Indigenous peoples, but from our non-Indigenous allies. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I feel the same way.
My name's Brian Whiting, and I'm actually up here for just the second day. I'm being brought in from Seattle, working with the company, Vancouver-based company that's doing ground penetrating radar. And I've been doing that kind of work for archaeological geophysics for quite a number of years, probably over 20 years at this point. And the radar works by sending, it's basically the same frequency as your cell phone or as FM radio. It sends very, very fast pulses of radar energy into the ground, almost like a fish finder. And then a lot of people think we're here to see the bodies or to see bones. That's actually not quite true. The bones are too small to be picked up. They're too similar to the surroundings. So what the radar is able to see is we push this cart, which I think you videoed a little while ago.
Impulse radar, pinpoint R. It's a radar used to help find the unmarked graves
Across the ground, and it sends the energy into the ground from a transmitting antenna and receives the returns from a receiver antenna. And anytime there's a change in the layering or there's an object, that will send the energy back up. And so I go across the ground in almost like a lawnmower. The cart does look kind of like a lawnmower, although a very expensive one. And as I zigzag across the ground, the data with those profiles, it gives me like a fish finder sort of looking profile, a whole bunch of really closely spaced parallel profiles, then in the computer back in the office get turned into a map, a three-dimensional volume really that I can map by slicing down into the earth. So I end up with these closely spaced profiles, put them into a 3D volume, and then I cut it at different depths to show a map. And that's what gives us indications of where the burials are. And we're more likely to see like cuts in the layer, in the soil layers, where they have dug out a burial shaft and stuff like that. If there's anything left of a coffin, we'll see that. Like I say, the technology is not a bone detector. It's more like an anomaly detector. What's different here in this spot that might be associated with the burial compared to what's undisturbed ground. So that's kind of the way things work. And like I say, I've been doing this for a while, and I'm going to be, after the first of the year, I'm going to be joining this company in their in their Victoria office. They're called Geoscan, and I've been doing this work, like I say, for many, many years. I've done a lot of slave burial grounds in the Caribbean and in the southeast of the U.S. And this is very different because today, on this day, I'm meeting people who were at this school. And so that's so recent, and it's a really powerful experience, and I'm happy to be here and helping out with the effort.
I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us, Indigenous and Canadians, who are looking for justice, looking for the truth, and working toward reconciliation. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing this with us and the important work that you're doing. I wish you all the best, and you take care. Okay, can you explain what we're looking at here?
Okay, on the right side, that's the easy part. That's just a map of where I've been. As I said earlier, I go back and forth with parallel lines, and then it gets put together in the computer later on into a 3D volume. And the breaks here, the gaps, are just inside the cemetery here behind us. It's where there are monuments, and I just couldn't go with my cart. And what we're seeing here is a cross-section view into the Earth, so Earth's surface here, down to a couple meters at the bottom. And this is the data that's taken with the cart as I travel along, and it pings the energy into the ground and returns energy. And the stuff that we're looking for, the stuff that we try to make sense of when we make maps, is like this. There's a little blip here that I'm kind of centering the crosshairs on. There's a blip here, and in the software too, we boost the signal so we can actually see this with a lot more clarity later on. So we're looking for stuff like that, breaks in the layering, hyperbola. They're like upside down U-shaped thingies that are generally like the top of features in the subsurface. Sometimes if there's anything left of a coffin, that's the way that would look in the cross-section. So disruptions in the layering. And the first really bright signals, the bright white and the bright dark you see here, are just the uppermost soil layers. The energy decreases the further into the ground it goes, so the energy is really strong here, and by the time you get down to a couple meters here at the bottom, we're not getting much returns. But again, I can boost that up in software later on. But we're seeing in this particular profile, I see lots of wiggles and wobbles that may be disruptions associated with burials. So this kind of level along here where my finger is about half a meter down roughly, and so that is probably the key place where we'll start to see some evidence of burials.
Right. So I spent about 15 years commercial fishing, and this upside down U right here that we're looking at, that disturbance, is very similar to what we refer to as like little haystacks when we're looking for bodies, like strong bodies of fish, and they'll come out the same way. So in a fish finder, for instance, those frequencies that are being sent into the water are measured in hertz.
Yeah.
Is it the same with this instrument?
This is, I've actually got two frequencies. I just flipped over to my dual frequency display here. The top one gives a little finer detail. That is roughly 1,000 times faster frequency than what you're using in the water. This is 800 megahertz, and so mega is 1,000, so 800,000 cycles per second. That's what that data is in the top. The bottom is a little bit lower frequency. It sees deeper, but not as good resolution, and this is 400 megahertz data.
Right. Wow.
And the reason, just for technical interest, I don't, maybe beyond what anybody really cares about, is the reason it looks like an upside down U is because the cart, picture me moving along, I'm pushing the cart along the top here, the energy goes out in front as well as just straight down. So as I get, say, to this point right here, the energy is heading out in front of me and it's picking up this feature in the subsurface, and the closer I get to it until I'm on top of it, that's when I get to the top of the U.
Right.
So it may be kind of similar to what you're talking about with schools of fish, because
the returning signal is stronger when you're on top, and
Yes.
it creates that haystack, and the image, the signal coming down at an angle will create these like the bottom of the U or A frame.
Right. Yeah. So I'll switch to the low frequency. Yeah. This one is. This is kind of messy. There's a lot of kind of zigzaggy looking stuff. That could be sometimes pieces of metal in the subsurface will give that sort of signature. It's sort of a ringing. Sometimes people's cell phones, if they're not turned off, will give me this kind of energy too.
Right. Okay. So it's very sensitive.
Yeah, it can be. This is a little bit cleaner looking, but we're kind of, by the time you get down here to 2 meters or so, not getting much at all in the way of energy returns.
And that's at the 400 megahertz area. Yeah.
So yeah, right now I keep track of my positions with basically a survey grade GPS, which is on top of the cart here. I got a receiver, and I have a base station that's set up at the corner where we started talking. And yeah.
This is the survey grade?
Yeah. So when that's set up properly, that will get accuracy down to a centimeter or so.
Incredible.
So yeah, if anybody ever wants to come back and mark out the burials that we're looking for, or even excavate them and move them someplace else, this equipment, this survey grade accuracy would be what you need to go to a particular spot and find it as closely as possible.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, it could be a meter off or 2 meters off. So this is the Pinpoint R impulse radar.
Yeah, and this equipment is designed for the utility and concrete testing industry, but it's very well adapted for what we do. It's made to be simple to operate, runs on an Android tablet. When I started doing this, it was a lot of cables and lead acid batteries and heavy equipment.
Now, if you don't mind, how long have you been in this field of work?
My training was in geophysics, but not this kind of geophysics. Geology and geophysics, and I started with ground penetrating radar in 1999, so 22 years? My math is
22
right.
years, yeah. Yeah, most Canadians weren't born. Brian, I want to thank you again.
Certainly.
You're very, very generous with your knowledge.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Bye now.